Hi, my name is Scott. I am in a master's program with Grand Canyon University, and this week we're talking about nonprofit organizations, more specifically charities, and how servant leadership is embedded in the characteristics of the charity. I chose to focus on the Alzheimer's Association, because Alzheimer's disease was the cause of my mother's ultimate death. And it is impacting society. Alzheimer's disease and the different types of dementia are impacting society in a very profound way. More and more healthcare dollars are being spent on caring for people as they age, and very much a lot of those dollars, a lot of the complications are associated with cognitive deficits and dementias. So if you look at the amount of healthcare dollars spent on, for instance, breast cancer research, the breast cancer has been much more widely marketed, and the Breast Cancer Foundation has done a wonderful job of bringing that to the forefront in society. We're all aware, and that is a very important and a very worthy cause. But if you look at the impact of dementia on society, the healthcare dollars are exponentially going towards caring for dementia patients, and that's only going to grow as the baby boomers age into their 70s and 80s. The question today is, what characteristics do we see in charities that exemplify servant leadership? As I was researching this, an interesting, when reading the blogs and reading what drives people to give towards charities, I noticed that many people are surprised when they find out the executive compensation of top executives at nonprofit organizations, such as the Alzheimer's Association. Is that a characteristic of servant leadership to have a top executive earning a very large salary, sometimes over $1 million? That's a good question. The answer to that question is not necessarily going to be the same for everyone. Everyone has to decide what their comfort level is with how much a top executive earns. But it does impact servant leadership in that it disqualifies, in some people's minds, whether that person is exemplifying the characteristics of a servant, because we expect that in a charity. We expect that charity to sort of exemplify a servant leader. So what are those characteristics? I used for my research a lot of stuff that's coming out of Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They're doing a lot of good work on the subject of servant leadership. I came across some things that I'd like to share with you. First of all, one of the most important characteristics of servant leadership, and this is going to, as we see this in top executives, is the characteristics of awareness. Awareness is so important because our servant leaders have to be self-aware. What are they good at? What are they not good at? How can they delegate? How can they motivate people? They're not just motivating people within the organization, but they're motivating people to give. And giving our dollars is one of the most intimate things that we do. And so the servant leader, I'm making a case to you that the servant leader can have a highly compensated salary and still be a servant leader. I don't think that disqualifies them from servant leadership simply because they're making, let's say, $1 million a year. I'd like you to start to view the servant leader a little bit differently, looking at them as being someone who's self-aware, someone who has the ability of persuasion. And persuasion is different than coercion. When we look at coercion, we see maybe an organization that's trying to push people to give, maybe out of guilt or something like that. What we want to do is educate the public, and I believe that the Alzheimer's Association showed us that they're good educators, that they're showing us through what they do that they are making the public aware, and that's largely what an organization is tasked to do. And the good servant leader understands that, and I think the Alzheimer's Association did a good job of that. Further, I'd like to look at the concept of conceptualization. And conceptualization involves the ability to nurture in others. And so the servant leader, a good servant leader, especially a top executive at some place like the Alzheimer's Association, is able to conceptualize the problem. Not only to conceptualize the problem, but able to see how society and motivate society to deal with that problem, because you're going to ultimately be motivating people to give. So the servant leader is going to have a very broad sense of self-awareness, conceptualization, and foresight. The foresight involves lessons of the past and the realities of the future. The lessons of the past and the realities of the future. If that is one of the most important aspects. When we look at the realities of the future with Alzheimer's disease, the reality is that millions upon millions of people are going to be struck with dementia. And as that profoundly impacts themselves, of course, and their family, and then in a larger sense, the community, and in a larger sense, healthcare in general, because we will have to find ways of paying to care for these folks and do a better job, a more compassionate job of caring for them. And then that's not even including the whole concept or the whole problem of how we fund research. And so the good servant leader, the top executive servant leader at a place, an organization like the Alzheimer's Association, is going to be able to look at the past and conceptualize the future. And that is the future that we face in this society. Is one of the largest, if not the largest, healthcare crisis going on in the United States. You could make a case that diabetes is right up there with the impacting society financially as well. But Alzheimer's disease has an even greater emotional toll on the patient and the family, because the patient is still there. The patient is still physically there, but not emotionally and mentally with you. And it is extremely taxing on the family. This is something that the servant leader understands at a very emotional level. So they're going to be able to conceptualize that. They're going to be able to put that out into society in the form of education. If you look at, I was looking at blogs and the way people choose, the way they make their decisions about whether or not they're going to give to the Alzheimer's Association. Many of them were put off and said, I'm not going to give to this association because the executive makes too much money. I disagree with that argument simply because I can't say how much is enough. I can't say that that top executive goes over to the private sector and makes the same money or more, and that somehow simply making $1 million simply because you're the leader of the Alzheimer's Association makes that somehow disqualifies you as a certain servant leader. I would like people to look at the qualities of the leader and then understand that an organization like the Alzheimer's Association is a multi-million-dollar organization that is very, you need top executives that understand how to deal with legislators, understand how to deal with other top executives. But of course, when we're talking about servant leadership, you need folks that understand the concepts that I've been talking to you about. One of the most important aspects that I saw when I was looking at this stuff from Regent University is the part of almost of a dreamer. It's part of that conceptualization. But the dreamer is deeply rooted in the intuitive mind. And the intuitive mind of the servant leader is, what they mean by that is that the servant leader is able to intuit how can I motivate people to want to learn about Alzheimer's disease? And as I do that, how can I motivate them to give? And how can I motivate them to get involved? What we do is we try to create a positive. The servant leader creates a positive from something that people even have a hard time talking about. Even the word Alzheimer's now is something that people almost run from because it is so scary to consider being completely impaired cognitively It's a very scary concept. So the good servant leader conceptualizes in the form of intuitiveness, in the form of the intuit nature of the top executive that is a servant leader, understands how society feels. Not just how society thinks, but how society feels. And as they understand how society feels, they conceptualize that into a plan that will drive people into giving to that organization in a very positive manner. So we take something very scary and we turn it into something that's very positive. If you look at people, maybe that you organize a run, for instance, to raise money for you're raising money for awareness on one side and research on the other side. Awareness is just as important as research. I noticed that a lot of people said, well, you're not giving enough money towards research. You have to understand that there is no research without awareness. Society has to sort of embrace the cause. And so the good servant leader is able to drive in a manner without coercion. They get people to embrace the cause. And so those are the aspects of servant leadership that I saw. The other reason that I was driven towards Alzheimer's disease is because they ranked very high, 97%, in transparency. And if you look at transparency, that involved the top executive's income. And the top executive actually did take a lesser income when there were questions about receiving, almost a $3 million compensation package, and that compensation package was decreased. So I hope that I convinced you, at least to get you thinking about that it's okay, that there's not an amount that a servant leader, that a top executive earns that makes them good or bad. They're good or bad based on the characteristics, based on their conceptualization, based upon their ability to motivate, based on the ability to persuade without coercion. Those type of characteristics make a good servant leadership. They promote a sense of wholeness. Think about that for a minute. What an incredible quality that is to an organization, a large organization. If you look at, I go back to breast cancer for a moment, people are in a sense, get some comfort from the fact that the Breast Cancer Association is so big. And they see that as now being powerful, maybe as powerful that we could overcome that horrible illness. And the servant leader can do the same thing in Alzheimer's. We're lagging behind in Alzheimer's, but we're coming along. That the servant leader, you create that sense of wholeness by saying, we as a society can be bigger and stronger, and we can beat it. That's what you ultimately want to convey to the public, is that if we come together, we can be bigger and more powerful than the disease by awareness and then by giving into research. So awareness comes first. So I don't want you to look at an organization, say they don't have enough money going towards research, and say, well, if they're still working on the awareness side of things, it's very, very important for them to be working on that side. I hope I've given you some insights into how a servant leader specifically impacts the organization. These qualities, if they are present within organizations like the Alzheimer's Foundation, they are going to drive that organization to fulfill their mission. Their mission, I loved it, was very simple. It's a world without Alzheimer's disease. That was the mission statement. Perfect mission statement, because that's something that you can conceptualize if you create an organization big enough, powerful enough, that people say, see, because people are driven towards something that's successful. If you look at the organization and say, wow, that organization is really doing something positive, then people want to get on board. So it becomes a positive experience. And I believe the Alzheimer's Association was successful in doing that. Thank you for listening to me today. Have a wonderful day.